everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. I am coming to you from Chicago. Our Rainbow Push Conference, we have kicked it off. We have kicked it off in a big way. Pastor Jamal Bryant, who's been leading this protest against Target, a store that has had a very diverse customer base. They turned their backs on DEI. He said, well, not so fast. And this demonstration, this protest has been extremely successful. And boy, was he inspiring today. Go to rainbowpush.org so that you can see his tremendous sermon. It really was a sermon at the minister's luncheon. And then they went on to protest at a Target store here in Chicago. Really, really exciting stuff. And we're going to be talking with John Hope Bryant and George Fraser, Reverend Al Sharpton, Reverend Dr. William Barber. Greg Palast will be there. So many people. India Walton from Roots Action, and in absentia, Alex Lawson from Social Security Works. But it's okay because guess what? On Saturday, he is one of the leaders of this No Kings movement. Yes, I know there are many people leading it, but you have been on my show. You're on the front lines of this, and I want to talk about this because as we look at No Kings, as we look at this June 14th military parade, this is new to the American experience, I must say. And it's very unsettling. It takes me back to the valedictory address of General Eisenhower, who was President Eisenhower, who refused to salute Alex Lawson. Saluting was started by a former actor who became president. Anytime General Dwight Eisenhower, who became President Eisenhower, who ran and won and became president. He was elected. He said, no, I don't salute because this is a civilian society. I'm no longer the general. I'm now the president of the United States. So, and as president, I am the commander in chief. I'm the boss of the military. The military is not the boss of me. And by extension, it's not the boss of we. We've had an imperial presidency for quite some time. But now we're seeing it become an imperious one. And that's unsettling. We should have been upset about it being imperial, but maybe it's the imperiousness, the attitude with which this is being carried out, that is really throwing us off. I got started a little late because I had heard that Senator Padilla from California, U.S. Senator, had been at a DHS conference, Department of Homeland Security conference, and he was raising questions that he should be asking as a senator from the most populous state in the United States. Like, what are you all doing? Not just about immigration, but you could see his frustration, the frustration that many Americans feel. Like, what are you all doing about immigration, about Social Security, about WIC, about SNAP, about Medicare, Medicaid? The food is too expensive. Eggs are still too expensive. We still have these wars that we're pouring billions of dollars into, and I can't get millions of dollars to save a school system anywhere I am. I mean, come on, you all, what is up? Well, he went into this DHS press conference. Not only was he physically accosted by security, I mean, this is a U.S. senator. He was handcuffed and he was body slammed, and they pressed him down with their knee to restrain a U.S. senator, everybody. Yeah, you do need to have a No Kings campaign because it's not supposed to work this way. And an imperial presidency is bad enough. But like I said, Alex Lawson, I think that might have struck a nerve with you. An imperious one? Mm-mm. Meet me on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, santitajackson.bsky.social, at Santita J on X, Facebook /Santita Jackson and Friends, Facebook /Santita Jackson and Friends. And right, you meet Bernadette. She got here first, Andre. That's right. Like and share, everybody. And please like and subscribe on my YouTube channel, The Santita Jackson Show. Okay, Alex Lawson. As we talk about No Kings, when I'm looking at how Senator Padilla I just so stunned by what I saw. It's one thing to hear that he was arrested. No, it wasn't quite like that. He was not only handcuffed, but they were shoving him out of the room. I mean, this is a U.S. senator. I mean, the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security had to get his vote. She serves because well, he didn't vote for her, but still, I mean, he's a U.S. senator. What is going on here? Wow, just very quickly before, and I want to pivot into, kind of swing into no kings from that.
Mhm.
Because to me, by extension, the people of California were body slammed and arrested. Anytime your representative has no standing to ask the Department of Homeland Security head or representatives what's going on, something about that is dangerous, Alex.
Definitely is. I don't think the stakes could be higher right now. Um, and, I think we should be outraged. We should feel it deep in our bones that this is un American. But intellectually, we should also remember that, in fact, it is American, right? Political violence is not unknown in this country. We've just had the immense privilege of living through a period of relative political peace, and understand that fragileness of that political peace can really be ripped apart like that.
Hmm.
And that's what Donald Trump is trying to do, right? But I will also say that, the resolve of the American people is what makes democracy. That's what makes our political system work. It's not Donald Trump. He's trying to overthrow the political system that we have, where we use elections to make our political preferences known and to implement our choices. He's going to, I don't know, an older, more authoritarian place where he's saying, no, I'm going to use the power of the federal government to go into states that are saying, do not go into our states with federal troops. First, they called up the National Guard in California. And remember, what they're doing is the National Guard and then active duty Marines that are just protecting the ICE agents who are arresting, the dishwashers at the local restaurants. That's what's going on. That's why Senator Padilla was talking to the head of the agency that is running those operations, arresting people, right? They promised that they were going to focus on criminals. And, at the time I said, I don't think that many people know that much about how law and, cops and criminals work, because the criminals could already be deported right now, right? The problem isn't like they need to do more. The problem is that criminals are good at avoiding law enforcement. So when Stephen Miller implements his racist policies, which are just used to stoke racial resentment, they're definitely going to go after the most law-abiding people. That's why they're going after people showing up for their immigration hearings, right? These are the rule followers that they're going after. Donald Trump removed legal status from hundreds of thousands, brought it all the way up to the Supreme Court, just so that they can get these pictures on the TV of this authoritarian power grab. And why? Because they know what they're trying to do. Remember, what's happening under the cover of this chaos is a full-scale looting of the American people, right? Ripping healthcare away from 16 million people, the largest healthcare cuts in the history of the country, $1 trillion in healthcare cuts to give tax handouts to a handful of billionaires. That's what marching the Marines or flying the Marines to California. I have seen on social media that, in fact, they just, it was such a PR stunt. They don't even have housing available for the active duty military and the National Guard who they've sent to California literally as photo op for this president. And speaking of photo ops, this is the currency that dictators trade in. So I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, right? They try to create a reality with propaganda. That's why Donald Trump is spending, something like $100 million on a parade to roll tanks down the streets of an American city to honor his birthday. I mean, come on. But the people aren't buying it. Senator Padilla was arrested, but he's out now and he's not backing down, and neither should we. And I know that's what we're talking about. The people are coming together this Saturday all across the country. And you said a leader in No Kings, and I will say, Indivisible are doing an amazing job bringing all of this together, but it really is leader full, right? It's actually 1,600 events that are being put together by the American people, inviting their friends and neighbors all across the country. Millions of people who are saying no to Donald Trump.
Well, Rosa Parks showed you that everyone in their own way can be a leader. Fannie Lou Hamer showed you that. I mean, what was Betty Friedan doing before she got into women's liberation? I mean, these are ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And that's why while I'm looking at Indivisible and all of these wonderful organizations that have come together to push this thought, this idea, and make this a real thing on Saturday, I think people can see you and hear you and say, you know what, I can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I think it's important for people to know that you can organize on your block. You could, number one, organize your own family and your friends. How about that? What is happening? Let's back up. What is happening on June 14th? What is the genesis of this? Because I think that we need to be singing from the same sheet of music and know what is happening June 14th.
So I think it's really clear that what Donald Trump is trying to do is to position himself as a authoritarian, an executive with control over every aspect of our lives. And the reason that they came into office and they deported people with no due process, and they sent them to a gulag, like Stalin did. And this is just a show of force, because that's what authoritarians do, right? That's what kings do. That's what, when we fought for freedom, it was against a monarch that thought that they had some right. They thought at the time a divine right to control every aspect of our lives. And the American people were like, no, you do not. We are free people. There's lots of warts and blemishes and all that we need to talk about with this country. But it is true that a defining principle was that there was no king over the American people. We threw King George out. And Donald Trump, he's actually following the playbook of Vladimir Putin, of Orban in Hungary, of the other right-wing authoritarians around the world, united by billionaires, right? Because let's never forget who's behind what's going on, the billionaires. And it's to create a government where you have a billionaire president, that's Donald Trump, acting like a king. And I heard a story that Vladimir Putin, talking with Donald Trump, he said, how come your president isn't the richest person in the country, right? And what he meant was, why wouldn't you use the office and the power of the office for personal gain? And I've never seen anything like Donald Trump is doing exactly that, right? his family have earned billions of dollars, billions of dollars. So Donald Trump trying to cement that visual. And it is important. Visuals matter. PR matters. There was a reason that Stalin would stand and roll the Soviet military in front of him, right? There was a reason that Stalin did that. It's the same reason that Donald Trump wants to do it. He wants to roll the tanks in front of him, saying, trying to say, this is my military. I'm the king. And we're saying, the American people, we don't have a king here. And that military, they work for the people. And the fact that we have a civilian who is above the military, and this country is not ruled by the military, and you can't have the military actually doing functions against U.S. citizens, that's an important aspect of who we are. And so sort of tying it back, as your setup is really on point, that the arrest of Senator Padilla, who's he's one of two senators who represents the state of California, and they're under assault by an out of control federal government who are sending the military against the wishes of the governor of the state over a manufactured crisis, right? The crisis is the immigrants who are working in restaurants in San Diego are not the crisis. The crisis was the federal agents, kicking down doors and arresting people. That was the crisis. They create the crisis so that they can have a power response. And that's the authoritarian playbook. We've talked about it on here before. Create the crisis and then, quote unquote, solve it. But really what they're doing is they're just, trying to amplify their own power. So Senator Padilla was doing his constitutionally mandated duties, right? His job is to ensure that the federal government, Kristi Noem, who, is most famous for shooting her dog, but also happens to be the head of the agency that's sending these ICE agents around the country. Senator Padilla's job is to do oversight of her office. And then she feels empowered to remove the sitting senator and then have federal police officers arrest him. It is a very dangerous moment that we find ourselves in. But I think people need to, especially in these moments, be reminded that the people have all the power. When you're standing with millions of people in every state in this country, find your event, go to nokings.org. If there's not one in your community, start one. It's easy. They don't need to be large. A few of you standing with signage at a local landmark, or go to a hospital, make it about the cuts to Medicaid that are going to decimate hospitals around this country. What we do is we stand together, and when we do, our fear dissipates, and we realize that play acting as an authoritarian, the antidote to that becoming a reality is millions of people raising our voices together, and we're so much stronger than this handful of billionaires and their puppet who are pretending that they have all the power. Well, you know what? They don't. The people have all the power. And you know what else? I bet you money Senator Padilla is going to be right back doing his job, asking those questions tomorrow. And we will be standing there shoulder to shoulder with him saying, we don't live in a country where one man gets to, create this chaos so that they can advance their agenda of looting the people and handing it over to their billionaire buddies.
And so that is the ultimate agenda, this massive transfer of wealth. What are we supposed to do once that happens? Because it's happening right now, Alex.
You are totally correct, and it's accelerating. And even if we defeat this this one that we're up against right now, the big beautiful betrayal, even if we defeat it, you are right. The playing field is slanted, and it's just pouring money out. It's an upward redistribution of wealth right out of our pockets into the pockets of billionaires. Really simply, to understand it, because it's not complicated. People want everything, it must be very complicated. It's not complicated. First of all, they don't pay taxes, right? They have an army of lawyers to make sure that they don't actually pay the taxes that they owe. That's what rich people do. They also have businesses where they pay their employees poverty wages. The Waltons, Walmart, in many states, they'll send out notices to their workers of how to apply for benefits, for state benefits, because their wages are so low. And the workers should apply for benefits that they qualify for. But importantly, Walmart should be paying a wage so that their employees don't need those benefits. And you know who pays for those benefits? We do. So we're literally putting our money directly into the pockets of the richest family in the world. And you look at all of the billionaires and you see that at its base, what they've done is created a system that's unfair, that's rigged, that's just a fire hose of money from our pockets to their wallets so they can buy a golden yacht or whatever. That's why they're stealing healthcare from 16 million people to buy another golden yacht. Your hospital's going to close so that some rich person gets richer. Right. That's why they're destroying food assistance programs. A senior or somebody's going to go hungry in the richest country in the world so that some billionaire can, go afford the ticket on a rocket ship to go into space or whatever it is that these billionaires do with all of that money. That's what it's all about. Don't forget, it's about stealing our money. Things that work for us, like Social Security, they try to wreck it so that they can rob it. Public education, they try to destroy it so that they can profit from it. And all of that is deeply un-American, and why we're seeing, and I will tell you, in all of my years, I've never felt as powerful a coming together of people as I do right now around Saturday's mass demonstration against Donald Trump.
We're talking with Alex Lawson of Social Security Works. He is their executive director. We're talking about this spirit of resistance that's in the country right now. People are pushing back. And I have to tell you, immigration is the spark. But there are a whole lot of issues in those kindlings. A lot of things are at play right now. People are scared. That's what they said in the Joni Ernst town hall meeting. People are going to die. And of course, you helped me to see that she made her apology, quote unquote, from a graveyard. Unbelievable. And now there was the claim that, we're going to have this Department of Government Efficiency, Alex, and it's going to look for the waste, fraud, and the abuse. But they did not touch the Pentagon, which flunked their audit for 7 consecutive years.
Yeah.
So now people are just saying, I'm done. I think it's more than immigration. And that's why, but I really think it's much more. And help me with that, because I just want to know, what do you see here? Because I think that as people are inspired, they might show up in the counter protest to No Kings, right? And the president just said, if I see, basically, I'm paraphrasing, if I see any dissent, you will be dealt with harshly and swiftly.
Yeah, I think so. I want to go really basic of how, this White House and a lot of politics operate. I've seen the polling. I mean, the president is absolutely underwater on the economy. Why? Because he's terrible at the economy. All of his ideas are dumb, right? Like quote unquote Liberation Day. That was the single stupidest economic idea. I mean, like they'll be writing about that for decades. So he's totally underwater on the economy because prices continue to go up. People can't afford things in this country. The cost of groceries is crushing people. And, you know, he promised he was going to bring them down on day one. Add that to the list of things that he promised that he has absolutely not delivered on. Healthcare. People care about the fact that they can't afford their healthcare. This president's not trying to make healthcare affordable or do anything that helps people. He's trying to rip. He's standing and using his bully pulpit to do one thing: steal 16 million people's health care, right? He's ending food assistance programs. We already said the cost of food is too high. You have seniors, people with disabilities, the most vulnerable in our country, who are going to have food stolen from their tables, all to give tax handouts to billionaires. And all of that is deeply unpopular. So he knows he has one. He's a one-trick pony. He knows that if he sends out his goon Stephen Miller to talk and lie to the American people that what he has in a plan for immigration is to go after criminals, he actually polls pretty well on that, right? People are like, yeah, the president should go after criminals and dangerous people. And so he pretends that that's what he's doing. But we know that's not what he's doing. We know that what he's doing is he's going after people who he knows he can find, right? Stephen Miller is not some sort of genius. He's not being able to figure out how to find the criminals who've been evading law enforcement for years, right? He's saying, no, go find the people who are showing up to court for their immigration hearing and send them out of the country, and then tell people it's, we're only focusing on violent people. So that is all to distract from the deeply unpopular looting that's going on. The economy, healthcare, food prices, all the things that he's failing at. He's going with the tried and true authoritarian playbook of then demonizing some people, saying it's their fault, and then attacking them in all the ways that he can. And so it is not about immigration. If it was about immigration, and Santita, you know this, and your listeners know this, but if it was about immigration, then remember, there was a bill that Donald Trump killed that actually would have dealt with immigration, but he didn't want to deal with immigration because he wanted this play acting. It was all plotted out. He had a game plan, a stupid one and a simple one, but a game plan nonetheless. If you want to deal with immigration, you have to take on the billionaires, the bosses who have created the broken immigration system that we have right now. That's who profits from it. It's not people coming over the border. It's not workers here, right? The bosses love our broken immigration system because it helps depress wages. It helps keep people terrified enough to work for low wages. That benefits the billionaires. Donald Trump's not interested in fixing the immigration system. He's not interested in ensuring that we have people here to do the jobs that need getting done. And we know this under Trump 1.0, and we're starting to see it already, the effects. You see industries coming to DC and just begging, lobbying and saying, hey, agricultural, tourism, all of these industries that rely on immigrant labor, we don't have enough workers and it's going to devastate local economies. And now, Donald Trump is trying to figure out some sort of carve out system. But at its heart, you see that it's hollow. right? It's actually just all PR.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important that we stand up with millions of people, because he's always talking about, oh, well, people agree with him. People do not agree with him. They think that his ideas of like destroying Medicaid, terrible. They hate that idea. People agree with us. They've got billionaires, but we've got people, and we're going to show them that on Saturday. NoKings.org. You can find the rally in your area. I'll be in Philly, right on the Rocky Stairs.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have an amazing event there. But it really is about all of the events across the country, the ones in your neighborhood, right? The ones that you do with your neighbors. And also, I'll be clear, Saturday is not the end of anything, right? It's just, again, the beginning of that whole week. That's when we're going to have to fight the Senate, who are going to be pushing to actually pass their destruction of Medicaid. Right then, right? We're going to go from No Kings into the week when the Senate, when Joni Ernst and all of her senator friends are going to have to sign on the dotted line to steal healthcare from 16 million people. So this is going to be an important day to stand with people, feel your own power, feel the power of the people, and get ready to keep on fighting. As Donald Trump keeps play acting that he's a king, we need to keep reminding him that no, he's just some dude, and his authority and power does not come from him. It comes from the people, the consent of the governed.
But it's feeling like with this imperial presidency, and this is not the first one. Like I said, it's the imperiousness, it's the attitude by which it's being conducted that sadly I think people find most objectionable. Because we've had presidents, no one has declared war since the Second World War. And here we're all over the globe fighting wars. Going broke doing that, Alex. When you have the No Kings march, what do you think? I mean, how do you if people ask you, No Kings, what is that about? What, just tell me, fill me in, because I'm not really sure. Because some people are not sure, Alex.
Yep.
About where to stand with all of this.
And I think it's pretty clear that the American people, they might disagree on some things, go to a civic meeting on zoning changes in your neighborhood, and you'll see that doing stuff is hard, and it requires people working together. And we've created a system that values our voices, and that's a democratic system. And there are some people, and unfortunately, I think we're seeing that it's millions of them, who are too lazy to put in the work, right? They're just lazy people who are saying, I don't want to think for myself. I definitely don't want to spend time on my civic duty, and I'd be willing to just do what one person says. But the vast majority of the American people are like, then you should go to a different country, because that's not how things run here. We don't have a dictator in this country. We don't want Stalin running the tanks down the street in this country. We don't have a king in this country. We have a democracy where we make our voices heard. And it can be a little messy and ugly, but the antidote to problems with democracy is always more democracy, not less. You deal with the problems of democracy by bringing more people's voices in. Most of the problems that we see are from they're artifacts of deeply anti-majoritarian things. The Senate itself, a compromise with slave owners, right, to protect the power of slave owners. And we're still dealing with the fact that you have two senators from California, which by itself would be the fourth largest economy in the world. They have the same amount of power as the two senators from Wyoming, which has which has less people who live in it, then Washington, D.C., where I live, I don't have a single senator, right? The Senate is a deeply anti-majoritarian, meaning it does not represent the will of the majority. And then they put the filibuster on, so that it's not even you need 51, you need 60. And that's how you get to this place where the rich, the billionaires, see that as their angle for how they can control things. They can take, and you don't have to take my word for it. You can listen to Peter Thiel give a lecture about how he wants to do things, deeply unpopular policies that couldn't stand up to democracy, but he wants to use technology to get around democracy. So he wants to use technology to empower dictator-like efforts. And this is a guy, he means it. And his buddies like Elon Musk and Doge, and now you have Palantir, another one in that little milieu, and they're given all of our data by Donald Trump, right? Like, that's his proposal.
Yeah.
So that's what we're dealing with. One man and a gaggle of billionaire buddies trying to say that we run this country for our own benefit. We're here to make ourselves even richer. And remember, that's what it's always about. It's about a small amount, a small group of people who want to enrich themselves at the expense of the people. And we have seen this before. It feels brand new to us because it's new in our lifetime. And Donald Trump is a uniquely repellent figure. But in fact, you can look at our history and see that there is a back and forth that happens, but the story is usually so obviously the same. It's like Wall Street and the billionaires want all the money. And when they get all the money, the economy collapses. You get the Great Depression. And then you have people like the New Dealers, like Francis Perkins. They create Social Security that works for the people. And that brings prosperity broadly to the people, which the billionaires hate. And now they're going to spend 90 years trying to destroy Social Security. It turns 90 this year. We're having a great birthday party on August 14th. But for 90 years, Social Security has worked for the people through war and peace, boom and bust, health and pandemic. Social Security's never missed a single payment. But for 90 years, the billionaires have also tried to destroy Social Security because they hate it. And this year, they got one of their billionaires, Elon Musk, to actually go in there and actively destroy Social Security. That's what it's all about. And he left behind another one of his billionaires, Gracias. He's still in there with Doge, and he's still there to push forward the billionaire's desire, which is to destroy Social Security. And I focus there, but they're all across government. You have these Doge goons. And even though there's been this falling out between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, it's still a government of billionaires for billionaires by billionaires, which is antithetical to the way this country works best, when it is a country that is working for the people, for all of us, and not for the donor class.
Alex Lawson, Executive Director of Social Security Works. And that's why I believe that these marches, these demonstrations are about so much more. And I just look at it, even if this is just the way it worked out, having the march on the 14th and then no kings on top of that is so important. So my question for you is, the president said, if I see any dissent, I'm paraphrasing, but this is the spirit of what he said. If I see some dissent, I'm going to deal with that.
I mean,
wait.
That's so I understand that people get scared when they hear things like that. But I also want to tell you, this is a peaceful mass demonstration. This is a mobilization of the most ordinary, wonderful people you can imagine. Millions of people coming out. They're not going to try to pick a fight with all of us. And in fact, we're working, our groups work really well informing law enforcement that these are peaceful demonstrations. So no, Donald Trump is not going to be able to disrupt the most important part of being an American, the duty of us to raise our voices when things are not right. So he can say that, but he's not going to do that. He might try to do like some thing, because we see, he arrested a senator, but there is not a situation where, you're going to be able to get the police to arrest millions of peaceful demonstrators. The police officer in a small town USA is going to arrest their mother, who's the one who's marching in the No Kings rally, right? Like, no. And we are all going to stand together. You have amazing lawyers, legal representation, contingency plans. So this is an organized, decentralized event. But there are,
Well, decentralized, why?
I think, this can get into a lot of movement strategy. But I actually think that as a student of, all of the movements, I think that having hierarchical structures is one of the ways that the billionaire class can most easily defeat opposition resistance, right? So when it's reliant on just a few people or few power centers, then they can target those power centers. So instead, what you do is you build it so that the power accrues literally to the people. Right. So give them tools like Mobilize online so that they can plan their own events, invite their friends and neighbors, and then everybody's in charge. There's rules and there is always some hierarchy, like the nonviolence pledge, those are ironclad. But the point is, no one is in charge of these mass mobilizations. The people are in charge. And because of that, there's no one that Donald Trump is going to be able to target and, take off the chessboard, and then the movement falters or stops. The movement is going to continue because the movement is just the American people standing up and saying no. And, I think you've seen that across the globe in this, because it's a global struggle against authoritarianism, against the rise in fascism and right-wing ideologies. You see that the most effective way, and it's almost mathematical, but the most effective way to defeat dictators or authoritarians, it's not to match them in even the political arena. You need political allies, but the cavalry is not coming from Capitol Hill. You know what I mean? The cavalry is not coming from anywhere except the American people. But when you do get millions of people taking to the streets and raising their voices together, our voices, you have country after country that shows that's what defeats authoritarians. I always remind people, Google Korean coup stop or protest, something like that. You'll see there is a president who thought he was a king. He ordered the tanks into the streets. Mm-hmm. He ordered the overthrow of his democratically elected parliament and the legislators in his country, right? It sound familiar, right? The authoritarian playbook.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was stopped by the most ordinary people. You'll find video after video of just people standing in front of them and saying no. And that is the antidote to authoritarianism every time. It's millions of people standing together and saying no. So remember that Donald Trump functions on fear. Fear is the fuel of his movement. And always remember that MAGA, the Trumpists, they're terrified. They can't even enjoy life. They're so scared of this manufactured image all the time. Trump controls with fear. So don't be afraid. In fact, be joyful. Find the joy in opposing a fearmonger, an authoritarian like Donald Trump. And I promise that you're going to find that joy. You're going to find your voice. You're going to find the bravery and how obvious it is that we're on the right side of this, right? That we're fighting on the side of right. And you'll be able to feel it and it'll feel good. So yes, he's going to try to scare people, and it's okay to feel scared. But just remember that fear will dissipate when you realize that you're not alone, that you're standing with your neighbors, with your friends and family. When you're standing together and you feel the power of all of us together, that is when it just becomes really obvious that all the power comes from the people. And what we're up against is an actor. Donald Trump played a successful business person on television. And now Donald Trump is playing a king on television. But that does not make him a king. We don't have kings in this country. And that's what we're going to remind him of on Saturday.
I'm sorry, I was just thrown with you. I mean, you're absolutely right. I just think that people can be intimidated by all of this because you say nothing's going to change. And I've heard people muse that aloud, and I'm like, no. It's someone like you who always makes a change. My father says, change doesn't come from the White House; it comes from your house. It doesn't come from Wall Street; it comes from Main Street. And we have to think of another way and I think it's already here. That's why I encourage you to get involved in the no Kings movement, because I think that was the fight more than 200 years ago, more than 250 years ago. You did have, even Benjamin Franklin was a rabid royalist. I'm sure he spoke with a British accent. He really was an absolute Anglophile. And more than that, in that respect, he was an imperialist. Now, one of the things that you see is over the course of his life, he really began to grow and change. Went from being a slaveholder to being an abolitionist, for example. So he made he was someone who evolved. That's one of the things I love about him. I love about Malcolm X. Malcolm X just never stopped evolving. The more information he got, the more he evolved. Do you think that that's what is going to happen to American citizens? And I ask that question because I think even a year or two ago, we would have been called conspiracists. Well, that sounds too fantastical. It's like, no. And now people are hearing you. They're saying, oh, you know what? I never thought it would be like this. I didn't think they'd take it this far. And they have. So,
I think it's brighter than that. I hear what you're asking, and I think that's an important aspect that we will have to deal with, people needing to change, and some people will. I actually still believe that the main problem is that not enough people still know what's going on, right? When you ask people about if they know, what is in the big, beautiful betrayal, and people just don't know. It's 3 out of 4 people do not correctly know what's in it. When you explain it to them, Fox News just released their poll. When you explain what's in there, it's 55% opposed, 22% support. So we are still, and it seems very far-fetched, I think, to many of us who do this every day, right? Like but to remember that most Americans are incredibly busy not doing this. And this is so ugly that I do think, unfortunately, many people have turned away from it and believe that if they don't see it, it's not happening. But, children learn that's not true when they're kids. It's not true when you're an adult. It is happening. People might say things like, oh, I don't do politics. And you're like, well, politics does you, for sure. Every aspect of your life is impacted by this. So when you think that maybe your hospital isn't going to close, because it's true, the hospital closures are primarily going to happen in rural hospitals and urban hospitals. They just released a report, 300 by name rural hospitals that will close. They just released that today. I'm sure there'll be another report on urban hospitals. But even if your hospital doesn't close, you lose the maternity ward, you lose the level 1 trauma center, which is where the most serious injuries and illness go to. That's the really emergent, save people's lives. Those things are pulled out of the hospital. And even if your hospital isn't impacted in that way, where do you think everyone's going to go? You're like, oh, well, I live in the suburbs, so I don't have to worry about my hospital. And you're like, well, all those folks who used to have a hospital in the rural areas, they're now driving to your hospital. That means your hospital is now overcrowded, uncompensated care. Everybody's hurt by this bill except for billionaires. And the problem isn't that like huge amounts of people are like, I like that, right? When you tell them what's in it, they're like, I hate that. I had no idea that that's what was going on. So we have to fight against, and stand with Senator Padilla doing his job. But we also need to, at the exact same time, never take our foot off the gas of explaining to people the stakes of what's going on, because it's still that 3 out of 4 people do not know the details of this $1 trillion cut to healthcare, of the destruction of food assistance, right? The list is on and on of all these deeply unpopular things just to give tax handouts to billionaires. And when they hear that, they're incredibly against it. So, Santita, that's why your role getting the truth out is, I think, the most important, that we need to find 1 million truth tellers all talking to their neighbors and their networks, their churches, their book clubs, wherever it is that they find people becoming a truth teller in those venues, so that people understand what's going on. Because when they do understand what's going on, they stand with us.
I've got to tell you, it is amazing to me that people say, I'm tired of things being so political. Everything is political, everybody. Everything. And if you want to, and I need you to help close us out on this, I think if you want a constitutional monarchy, which is what the British have, which is what we left, then do nothing and let somebody else take over for you. Let them own the land, decide when you go to the dentist, the doctor, all of that. There's some things about their healthcare system that really do work, but there's some choices they do not have, because they still live in a place where there are some people who are called commoners, like everybody who's not the landed gentry. Whoa, I don't want that.
But even I would just say they're not looking for a constitutional monarchy here, because the English Parliament has all the power. They're looking for literal authoritarianism. It's Vladimir Putin. That's what they want. They want, because Vladimir Putin has the trappings of it. Right? He's supposedly elected. He's not elected. They want a Viktor Orban. This is it. Viktor Orban, I think, is the one who Donald Trump is most he's mirroring the most. If you look at what Viktor Orban's done in Hungary, It's just straightforward strongman stuff.
And
But most importantly, he robbed everyone and gave it to his buddies, right? So all of his buddies became incredibly rich and then used their power to keep Orban in power. But I mean, it literally, he steals people's businesses and gives them to his buddies. That's what the vision is here. Collection of oligarchs, start with the billionaires who were sitting behind Donald Trump at his election, right? I mean, you had the richest people in the world sitting behind him. That's who Donald Trump is looking to empower with his presidency, and not just empower. It's looking to just rob us and give our money to them. That, I think, that is it is some form of authoritarian dictatorship. Like the tech bros call it a CEO. They think that we need a CEO over this country, but it is definitely not what we have. We have a democratically elected president who answers to us, the people. Donald Trump is not the boss. We are Donald Trump's boss. That is still the truth. And until the people take a knee all together, that will continue to be the truth. And we're not taking a knee. We're going to stand on our feet together this weekend. So I'm only sad that I'm not there in Chicago with you right now. But I look forward to when I do get down there and we can raise our voices together in person.
in the meantime, we just have to stay on the Santita Jackson show, which for me ain't bad. I have to thank you, my dear brother beloved, for always being so open. I'm looking forward to all of the things that we will be doing together in the future, because we've got to link arms, because Alex Lawson, we're at the beginning of the bad part. When 16 million people effectively will lose their health care, we're at the beginning of the bad part. Social Security has been dismantled. Now you have to go into that office and maybe sit for 1, 2, 3 days, maybe 10. I don't know. That's where we are. So we really, Alex, need to be careful. And you've got the military marching through the streets and the president saying, if someone steps out of line, we will deal with them. Oh, it's too much. The final word belongs to you. How can we get involved in the No Kings campaign?
So nokings.org. If you go online, just go to the website, you'll see a map. It's got all of these events. I think it's 1,700 now, but there's one in every state. There's lots in many of the states. If there's not one near you, really clear instructions on how you can set one up. The key here is this is nonviolent mass mobilization, a demonstration of peaceful power. And the power is so awesome that it has the ability to stop in his tracks a wannabe dictator like Donald Trump. And yes, they will threaten. And yes, there will be occurrences like, they arrested Senator Padilla on purpose. They're trying to scare people into being silent. But you saw immediately, you didn't see, a bunch of Senator Padilla's colleagues in the House and Senate say, I'm scared, because they know what happens if they don't fight back. So they're immediately, they all walked together. Senators, members of the House, walked over to demand of Senator Thune, the head Republican senator, that he step in his role as the top senator. He's the most powerful senator, and the Republicans control the Senate. But his job is also to oversee all of the senators. And one of his, a senator was just arrested by the president of his party. So you didn't see people sit back. You saw people step up. And that is when we are most safe, is when we are raising our voices together, when we are standing with each other. That is when we are unstoppable. And that's why I really want people to go to nokings.org and sign up, turn out, make a sign, hands off my Social Security, hands off my Medicaid, hands off my health care, and, show up and realize how much power we have. It's all of it. And then remember, the fight's not over. We're just getting started. And we're going to immediately ask you to do more, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take all of us doing what we can when we can. But we are unstoppable, because when we fight, we win every time. The only way we lose is by not fighting. And that's why they spend so much time trying to scare us into not raising our voices, because they know that we are unbeatable when we stand together.
When we stand together, what do they say? If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. All right, everybody. No kings, no kings. Social Security works. Please give them your support. And everybody, let's come together. I hope to see you at the Rainbow Push Conference. Please go to rainbowpush.org. We are having a tremendous conference. Everybody's coming through. And I guess we will cap it all off by supporting No Kings on Saturday. Come on, everybody. We have to take a stand and save the country, because that's really what this is about. It really, really is. We can make America great for real. For real. We can do that. And we're the ones who have to make that happen. Things don't just happen in history. You got to go on and make things happen. Come on now. Let's do this. Alex Lawson, my brother beloved. Social Security works. Sending you so much love. I send all of you much love, everybody. I'm running out of here, and God bless you. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, the Santita Jackson Show.